Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I just wanted to come on today and give you an update on how things are going, and I'm gonna lay down a disclaimer that there's probably gonna be a lot of triggers in today's video because I will be talking about miscarriage. That's pretty much going to be the focus of today's video. So if you are sensitive to that, or that sounds like something that you're not going to be able to handle or you don't want to listen to, please definitely feel free to not watch this video, because the last thing I would want would be for anyone to become upset by the content of today's video. So I wanted to check in, but I also kind of wanted this video to be about kind of like a survival guide for miscarriage. So I can remember back to when I had my first miscarriage, and obviously, I was heartbroken because of what was going on, but also I was terrified because I had no idea what to expect. I had a very early miscarriage. Actually, this one and that one, I was 5 weeks, 3 days along. And when I looked to my physician at the time for guidance, as to what to expect, she just kept saying, your period will come, your period will just come whenever it comes, which felt very, very insensitive to me because it's not a period. So I didn't know what to expect. Me personally, I don't have super heavy periods. I usually have flow for maybe 4 to 5 days. The first 2 days are the heaviest, and I use quotes because my heavy days are nothing in comparison to I know a lot of women's heavy days. And then the last 2 or 3 days are just kind of like tapering, so my periods are not that bad. So if I went based on that, your period will just come and be like, oh, no, piece of cake. That was not it. That was not my experience at all. It was not like my periods. So, I just kind of, and I think most women just kind of figure it out, but I just wanted to pass along some things that I personally have found to be helpful when you are going through a miscarriage. Now, obviously, the further along you are, the more bleeding you will likely have, more pain, cramping, maybe even crossing over into like the contraction range. So kind of keep that in mind. But these are going to be my experiences so far with early pregnancy loss. So, let's start with the most important thing is blood containment. And like I said, I didn't really know what to anticipate. And I found the bleeding to be much heavier, and there was a lot more blood clots than I'm used to. I will also say that I am usually pretty exclusively a tampon user, so I think sometimes that can skew the amount of blood that's coming out, because if you're not really used to that feeling, and we all know that feeling, that kind of like really icky gushing, it can feel like a lot. But then when you go to the bathroom to check, you're like, oh, it wasn't that much. But in my experience, especially with my first miscarriage, if it felt like a gusher, it was a gusher. It was kind of a lot. So you're definitely going to want to stock up on heavy duty pads. So the ones I have here, and I guess I'm going to lay down the disclaimer that I'm not paid by any of these companies. So I've got Always pads here, and Always, they go stepped 1 through 5. These are a 4. Okay, so they are listed as for overnight protection up to 10 hours. Okay, so they're not too bad. The 5th step is like the heavy duty overnight ones. those are like the really, really big ones, which I found I had to wear those with my first miscarriage because my bleeding was pretty heavy. I would soak one of those big ones in probably about 1 to 2 hours, which is quite a bit. But so far I've been doing just these and have been doing okay. I know that there's lots of different brands that have like the thinner pads. And I would say use those at your discretion if that's, more comfortable for you, by all means. If you want to try to wear something that's not quite as bulky. I don't really know why I feel more comforted or more secure with a little bit more bulk, but that's just me. You might also invest in some disposable underwear that you don't care about throwing away. Or, you can wash them if they get really bloody if you want to. But I found just like emotionally, I'm just going to buy, a pack of like a 10 pack of granny panties and just throw them away. I know that's really wasteful, but the prospect of washing your miscarriage blood out of things is, it's kind of heavy. So if that's what you need to do to get by, then that's what you do. They generally do not recommend wearing any kind of menstrual cup or tampons for a miscarriage. And I don't know 100% what the reason for that is. I think that it likely could due to the increased risk of infection potentially. But also I found, so during my first miscarriage, it was just like such terrible timing. One of my very, very good friends from high school was getting married when I was miscarrying, and I just obviously I did not feel like I could emotionally deal with being around like a bunch of people at that time, so we regretfully were not able to go, but at the same time I just needed to get away. It was almost as if I didn't want that association with being in my own home, if that makes sense. So Chris and I took off down to St. Louis and rented, a suite at a hotel and just kind of hung out. We did a little bit of sightseeing, not too much because I wasn't really feeling super, super great. I was having a lot of cramping. But to get to my point about why it's important, I think, to just wear pads and nothing to inhibit the bleeding from coming out. So one of the nights we made reservations for dinner at the Four Seasons, and for the wedding I had bought a really pretty dress, and I don't know, I just wanted to get dolled up and go have a really nice fancy meal. So we had made these reservations, and I'm wearing my granny panties, my giant diaper pad, and I was wearing some Spanx tights. Okay, so we're on the way to the Four Seasons, and right as we're pulling into the deck, I just had a bout of hellacious cramping. Horrendous cramping. And so I think what had happened is those Spanx that I was wearing, the Spanx tights, it's obviously very restrictive. And I really feel like it wasn't allowing the blood to flow, and it had started to clot in my uterus, kind of, because there was blood in my uterus that needed to come out, but it was kind of meeting that really tight pressure resistance from the Spanx. And so I go in. Well, first, when I got out of the car, I stood up and felt oh no, there was a substantial flood wave trying to break through. So I got to the bathroom as fast as I could and ended up, just having a really, really heavy flow and passing golf ball sized blood clots. And I really do think that it was just too restrictive. So that in my experiences, I think one of the reasons why you should not wear tampons or menstrual cups or anything like that, you really want everything that needs to come out, it should be allowed to come out in an unrestricted manner, if that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing I want to address on your list of priorities, so obviously the first one being containing blood, next is going to be your comfort. So obviously taking whatever medications that are safe for you to take. I have pretty much just stuck to ibuprofen. Honestly, today is my second day of bleeding. My cramping hasn't been too awful. So I haven't had to take it like scheduled. I'm just taking it as needed, and I take about 600 to 800 milligrams, usually more closer to 600 milligrams, and you could do that every 6 hours. If you take 800 milligrams, and I am not a doctor, so I cannot prescribe, but if you're taking 800, I would wait longer. I would wait 8 hours before you took any more. Sometimes I think it's better to just kind of start with a smaller dose and just see how that works for you. So ibuprofen, you could also alternate with acetaminophen or Tylenol. Just making sure that you're alternating and following the instructions. I would say to do that if your cramping is really, really bad and uncomfortable, to definitely do that. Another thing that you can use is a hot thing. I got this. This is like one of the best hot packs that I've ever had. It's really big. It's actually meant, I'll hold it all the way up. It's meant to drape over your shoulders, but it also drapes really nicely like across the lower back, across your tummy. I like that it can, if it's laid on my tummy, it'll extend down onto my thighs, because sometimes when my cramps get really, really bad, I'll feel it in my thighs. So this is the type of thing that you microwave and get nice and warm. I find that heat is really, really good for cramps. It really helps to kind of relax things down a little bit. And I think it helps to relax you in general. I often find that when I've got my heat on, inevitably I'm going to end up dozing off, which is a good thing. Some people like to do ice. I'm not a huge fan of ice, but again, if that is what's comfortable for you, maybe sometimes alternating between heat and ice is another thing that you can do. Next on your list of priorities, I think, is taking care of you. So making sure that you are eating and drinking. I generally find this to be kind of hard, when I'm going through emotional kind of turmoil or whatever. I generally just don't want to eat. I don't want to drink anything. So that's difficult for me. That's something that I really have to actively make an effort to do, which I think a lot of women are that way. And equally as important to that is sleeping, making sure you're getting enough sleep and enough rest, and just taking it easy. I have found so far this go round, I think is just a form of detachment from it. Emotional detachment. I just want to keep going, do what I would normally do, go to the gym, work out, but I'm really having to kind of force myself to just slow down and take it easy. But unfortunately, that's not always an option. With my first miscarriage, I ended up taking, I think, at least a week off of work, and I was really fortunate to have been able to do that. But I know a lot of women, that's not an option for them, to stay home for a week while they're, miscarrying their baby, which is, it's just a piece to the really, really messed up puzzle in terms of healthcare and, sick leave and things like that, which I will not even get into. But actually, today I had a second interview for a position that I applied to maybe about a month ago. And I've had this interview set for about a week. And I knew at the beginning of the week, when it was apparent that I was going to have a miscarriage, I knew immediately that it was going to be happening while I had this interview. So, I could have tried to reschedule, but I just didn't want to do it. I just kind of part of me wanted to get it over with. Another part of me wanted to just kind of like be a warrior, gut through it, and like do my best. And, kind of, I've made a commitment, so I want to keep that. So what did I do today to kind of prepare for that? So luckily, my flow today has not been too bad. But these are just a couple of things that I did. I packed an extra bag with pads and an extra pair of underwear because, you never really know. I mean, you really never know, what's going to happen. So just having those extra things is important. And if nothing else, it just gives you a peace of mind. So in terms of my clothing, I wore a nice, flowy, comfortable, unrestricted maxi dress. However, I kind of wanted something between me and the dress as an extra buffer just in case, I did get into that situation where it's oh boy, I've got a gusher. So these are a pair of LuLaRoe leggings that I have cut off into little bike shorts or capris. Again, they're very soft, not constricting, but it just kind of helped hold everything up in there and act as an extra layer. Something else that I could have done would be they make little disposable heat packs that stick on your tummy. So if I had been cramping really badly, I could have used those. I think they stay warm for up to 8 hours or something. I would have opted not to do that because I do live in Florida and it is real hot out. And the thought of having something hot on my tummy while I was outside that's not gonna go. But those are the things that I employed, and everything went off without a hitch. It was great. I wasn't constantly, worrying about, gosh, hurry up this interview, I gotta get home, because I had kind of prepared for that. Another thing you could do, which I actually saw this last night on another gal's channel, her channel is The Real Mariella, and she did this. She was not having a miscarriage. I just want to say that. She was having a really, really crazy, heavy Provera period, which we've all had. But she actually, so what she would have done was taken these leggings and lined the inside of the leggings with panty liners, which I was oh, that's genius. And I definitely, if my flow had been heavier today, I definitely would have done that. I think that's about, actually, no, there's one more thing. There was one more thing, maybe the most important thing that I forgot. And this is going all the way back to the beginning for the kind of blood containment / cleanliness. A little squirt bottle. And I came up with this because I am an OB nurse, and anyone that has been a postpartum mom knows that you got lots of blood after you give birth, and we give you little peri bottles, just clear plastic water bottles, so that after you go to the bathroom, you spray down with water. The main reason you're doing that after you have a baby is just to make sure everything gets cleaned away. A lot of women will have stitches down there, but plus it just makes you feel cleaner, because this is really graphic, but the blood that's coming out, it's not drops of blood if you cut your finger or something. There's lots of material uterine lining and blood clots, and it's very mucousy and viscous. So spraying down after I go to the bathroom with just a little bit of warm water just to help like cleanse everything away just makes me feel better and less gross, to be honest, because it is kind of gross. So those are all of the things that I have done, and I think it works pretty well. If anyone has any other things that they have done while they've had a miscarriage that adds to any of the items that I brought up, please feel free to share them in the comments. And again, if this video, albeit, you know, it's really, really sad that anyone would need this, but if this video can help anyone in this similar situation in the future, I think that's why I'm doing it. So just, I wanted all of you to know I'm doing okay, and we'll just keep moving forward, and I'll keep you guys updated. And I was offered that position today, by the way, so you want to talk about being a warrior, getting that job. It sounded more insensitive than I meant it. But I hope everybody has a really good weekend, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.